Welcome to the Grow Podcast. I'm Pastor Mike with New Hope Network. We're here to help you take your next step in your relationship with Jesus. I'm so glad you're with us today.
What's up, New Hope family? Welcome to the Grow Podcast. We are so glad that you're here. My name is David. With me, as always, is Pastor Mike. Pastor Mike, episode 79.
It is.
The first episode of 2023.
Yeah.
Although we're not recording it in 2023
No,
because
we
it
aren't.
comes out January 2nd,
Yeah.
and we did not come in on New Year's Day to record this podcast. But
No, we were staying home watching TV. And,
Yeah. But-
do you watch the Rose Bowl parade? On the
you could have, if you stopped after the word bowl, the answer would have been yes.
You watch the Rose Bowl, but not the parade.
Although this year, all the bowl game, like the normal like New Year's Day bowls, are all on New Year's Eve, because New Year's Day is a Sunday, and they didn't want to compete with the NFL, so they hid them all.
See,
on
I
New
don't
Year's
know
Eve.
those things.
I didn't know that either
That's
until
a
I looked
sports
up.
thing.
I just was looking to see when the Gophers played,
Okay.
even though bowl games.
Mhm.
There were like 5-7 Rice was in a bowl game the other day. I'm like, I'm not watching this. You can't make me watch this no matter how much I like sports. But anyway, I wanted to see when the Gophers played because my son is obsessed with sports at the moment, and he wanted to watch Gopher football one more
Why
time.
would your son be obsessed
It's the
with
best.
sports? Yeah.
Because he wasn't until this,
Yeah.
until maybe the last 4 to 6 months. And it's been a pretty tremendous time for me
That's fun.
as a dad. We watched the Vikings on Saturday, and then he said, can we go outside and play football? And he never wants to go out in the
Nice.
cold.
Yeah.
But he wanted to play football, and Mom said no football in the house. So we went out in the backyard, played some tackle football for a while, and then we watched the World Cup final on the next day on Sunday. And then he wanted to play soccer, so we were allowed to play soccer in the house.
I was going to say that would be hard in the
Well, yeah,
snow
that doesn't
we've
work in
got
the snow as
North
well.
Dakota right now.
But anyway, I looked it up, and then I just was looking at the other bowl games, and I was like, oh, these are like the Rose Bowl's always on
No
New Year's
idea.
Day, like
Yeah.
because the parade, like that's a huge
Yeah.
part of it. They have
Yeah.
the parade, and then the game is later that day. I didn't know they would like avoid a Sunday, but apparently they are.
Yeah.
But no,
See-
I do not watch I mean, with the kids, like we've had them on, like the Macy's parade.
Yeah.
Pre-kids, I would watch between 12 and 15 seconds of the parade. It just felt like on Thanksgiving. I would turn it on,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, okay, that's enough, and then I would turn it off.
See, the Thanksgiving parade and the Rose Bowl parade are two of my personal traditions that my family just
Yeah.
cringes over. It's like, Dad,
Even does Kylie not like them either?
she's okay with it, And so
Kylie's
I
more
love
my
the fact that
people.
we live in a day and age that I don't have to watch them live,
Oh,
So I'll
sure.
watch it a little bit later in the day, but, we'll wherever we are.
One thing that helped this year, so who is it that normally does the Macy's one? Like the main, is it NBC? That's like the main.
Whoever Al Roker is
Yeah,
on. Yeah, is that
I think it's
NBC? I
NBC.
think it's
Anyway.
NBC.
Their broadcast has it's unwatchable.
Yeah.
Especially with kids.
I
You
don't
never
watch it.
see any floats. They just
Yeah.
sit and they show like the terrible fake productions because it's
Yeah.
all like lip syncing, and
Yeah.
it's just awful. And it's mostly just them like interviewing celebrities. And I'm sitting here with my, Leighton's like 3 and 4 years old, and they lose his interest in like 5 seconds. But then I don't know if it was CBS or one of the other ones this year, and they still had,
CBS did a decent one.
and it was just
I might have watched it on
floats.
both.
Like, of course you did, but it was just floats. Like it
Yeah.
held the kids' interest for the whole parade.
Exactly.
Because even when they were talking, like it was the floats behind them, not just like that stage or whatever. And they weren't stopping to show boring songs from Broadway musicals that my kids don't care
And
about.
the Rose Bowl parade, I think HGTV does like where
Oh,
they
really?
go into all. They do a great Rose Bowl parade.
good to
A
know.
little bit of trivia.
Oh, boy.
I have been to the Rose Bowl
course you
parade
have.
live.
That's the least surprising news
when I was
any
small,
of us have ever.
My family would vacation because it's the only time we closed our restaurants.
Okay.
We would vacation in Southern California, and we got up, I don't know, early one morning and went, and we might have even gotten bleacher seats. I'm trying to remember, and we're able to watch it live. I have no memory of the parade other than the fact we got to see it.
Yeah.
And I was.
Do they
fairly
throw
young.
candy at the Rose Bowl parade, whatever they call it?
Not where I was.
'Cause
but yeah.
If I brought
Maybe.
my kids to a parade and there was
You-
not
you-
candy being thrown out,
Yeah.
it would be a disaster.
Well, and where we live now, it's like that's the staple of
that's every
parades
that's
in our
every
hometown.
parade.
Yeah.
That's how I grew up.
Yeah.
And then I remember, maybe it was Oklahoma when we moved from Minnesota to Oklahoma. Maybe that one. We went to some parade, and there was no candy. And I'm just like, what's the point of this? Like, why? If you're like to bring a little, I mean, I understand it's fun to look at, but when I was a kid, like, I'm here for the candy. I'll clap for you as long as you're hurling like hard objects at my face that taste good. That's kind of the bit.
Yeah.
So no, I probably won't be watching, or we'll pretend that this is live. Yesterday, I didn't watch what is it? Parade of Roses? What do they call it?
Rose Bowl Parade.
Just the Rose Bowl Parade? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the artistry behind that and use the live plants is amazing. It just fascinates me.
My mom loves it. So it was always on in the house.
That's part of it is I grew up with it.
Yeah.
And fascinates it.
Yeah. Well, we were kind of talking about New Year's Eve.
Yes.
New Year's Eve things.
New Year's Eve things.
Messiah series closed out this last weekend, yesterday, if you're listening to this, the day that it comes out. So we'll be getting back into the greatest story ever told next week with our series 23andMe. But we're going to talk about resolutions. You're going to talk about things to avoid if you really want to change this year. Are you a New Year's resolution person?
You know, I hate the phrase New Year's resolution, and part of it just because of what it's come to mean for people. Where it's like, here's, the list of 5 things I want to do. And so I'm probably playing with semantics, if I'm real honest. I chose years ago, I'm not going to make a resolution, but it's a great time to say, this is kind of a demarker where I'm gonna begin to do some things different.
So you like resolve to make decisions. That's way different. Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah. And that's some of it. And we'll talk a little bit about it. I think there's a difference between saying, here is what I want to do, and saying, here's who I want to be.
Sure.
And I think getting a picture of your preferred future, which, by the way, is biblical. It's vision. And without vision, our people perish. Our hearts are demotivated. So getting that vision right, I think that matters. And we've talked a lot on the Grow podcast about how God put holidays and seasons in for a reason. They're just natural times for change and natural times for new decisions and new life. And this is, I think, a good time for us to think about it.
I can't judge you too much for your semantics because the reason I never have and never will make New Year's resolutions is because just the idea of New Year's as a holiday we celebrate drives me so nuts because we're celebrating nothing. Nothing happened. Just the fact that we arbitrarily decided that this is the first month of the calendar. This is the first day of the first month of the calendar. And now we celebrate it. Just drives me insane. Something that it's just nothing.
We celebrate the passage of time. It's like celebrating a birthday.
Every day, time passes.
Yeah, but why do you celebrate a birthday?
Well, I'm not a big birthday guy either.
Okay. We need to work on this.
I'm a Thanksgiving guy. We already talked about that. Let's celebrate the giving of thanks. No, but for me, I've even had times where I'm like, okay, this is like a significant change I want to make, either like physically or spiritually. And I will refuse. I will not start.
You'll do it
on
some
January
other time
1st.
of
I'll
the
be
year.
like, I'll be like the third week of January. I can start this new thing or whatever it is. I will not start it on January 1st because it drives me nuts that much. So your level of semantics with the word resolution is nothing compared to how ridiculous I am. So I'm not going to say anything about it.
But I think one of the things that is part of this for me is when you look at kind of the statistics, and so much so it's become kind of a trope. It's become kind of a
it has for sure
thing of, but 92% of New Year's resolutions people don't follow through on. So it's like 92%. Why bother?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's almost become I
have to.
Yeah, like if you watch the news this time of year, there's like a 20-minute segment every day on here's how to keep your New Year's resolutions, or here's how to set, like you were saying before, like here's 5 New Year's resolutions you can set. And so you're almost pressured into it by culture, by media, and which is just such a ridiculous thing because you were saying it's a biblical thing to try to like.
I think it's a very good thing to choose strategic times, and why not lean into, times when we're already marking moments. Right. Choose strategic times to say, here are some key decisions I want to make to direct my life. And one of the repeating phrases that we talk about, in fact, we're going to talk about it in the 23andMe series. That's we're gonna start here,
which is not about.
It's not DNA, about DNA. It's
supposedly.
not about ancestry.
I'll believe it when I see it, but as of right now, it's not.
Our daily decisions or direct our lives,
Mm-hmm.
not these, big kinds of decisions.
Yeah.
And it's the daily decisions. And I think those are the things where that matter for us, is what are the daily decisions that are going to direct our lives?
Why do you think, other than, because I feel like that number 92% is probably inflated because of like what I was talking about, where everybody feels an obligation to set them.
Yeah.
So even if I have no interest, there's no way I'm going to do this.
Right.
But everybody's going to ask me at the New Year's party, or when we get back from
unless
work.
it's you and you'll intentionally not do
then I go on
something
my
just 'cause-
20-minute rant, and then no one wants to talk to me in the office anymore. That's why I'm very lonely. But so I think that number maybe gets inflated a little bit. You're still talking about an extremely high number of them that fail, even the ones that are, okay, I want to accomplish this. Why do you think that number is so high?
Well, and I, as I was thinking about this, doing some research on this, and I just put 3 transformation traps, 3 things that trap us. And these aren't
That's
all
nice
original.
alliteration there, Pastor Mike.
I didn't
Transformation
think about it.
traps.
Transformation
You just
trap.
do it. You just
It
do it
just comes to me.
subconsciously now. You've been a pastor.
And I'm
so
looking
long.
at the 3. There's some alliteration in these other 3.
boy.
Like the first one is when we put intention over intentionality. You like that?
Man.
I like that.
Starting off the new year well.
But so much of that is, okay, here's my good, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to, I'm going to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, here's what I intend to do, but we don't have a plan for it.
Oh, sure.
Don't have a strategic plan for it. And, you talk about that. So, some of the questions are, do you write it down? Do you have it in front of you instead of going, oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You get distracted. Do you have a plan? I think the big thing is, do you have a community? We've talked a little bit about the health journey I've been on over the last couple of years. And for me, the big thing was I had 2 people who walked the journey with me. One, Kylie chose to be on on this journey with me. So we chose to begin to eat differently. And 2, I found someone who educated me and asked, not necessarily, there was accountability questions, but just cheered on and pressed into, so why are you doing that? And having a community matters.
For sure.
With that. So think about, if you're going to make these kinds of decisions, whether it's first of the year or whatever, are you doing it intentionally, or do you just have, I'm supposed to, good intentions?
And community was one of the things you talked about in the message on this last Sunday.
Yeah. Getting in a small
group.
And being in church.
Yep.
And so many of us, as the passage of scripture that we looked at this last Sunday, online only, because we had Pastor Andrea speak in Williston and Isaiah, and they took the same scripture, but a little bit differently. But it's interesting. It talked about don't give up meeting together, as some are in, and it's such a fascinating word, in the habit of doing. We can get in this habit of not being in the kind of community that's transformational, and especially over the last few years, right? Yeah, that's been where we went. I think here's another big thing, and I heard this a couple of years ago from Pastor Craig Rochelle, who just always comes up with incredible content.
I've heard of him.
And
does he pastor like a small church down south somewhere?
You can go check out his leadership podcast. But this actually something we're going to learn again in the 23andMe. I keep foreshadowing here.
Sponsored by Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
When we think of our decisions, like our New Year's resolutions, and we think in terms of big steps instead of small steps, one of the reasons that decisions to make changes in our lives often fail is because we decide to do too big of things. It's like, I'm going to get into working out, so I'm going to work out for 2 hours every single day. Well, for most people, that's not sustainable.
Right.
And then we just stop. So we don't do that.
Not to
go ahead.
Derail you too much, but when I try to get back into working out, that's usually my biggest mistake, because I was an athlete, right? I played 4 sports in high school. I played sports in college. That was who I was. And so to go into hey, I'm not in the kind of shape I was when I was a 21-year-old, young man playing sports. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around. I have to ease myself into this workout. I'm like, no, we're going right back into what I did, freshman year of college with the basketball team. Let's get after it. And then I break myself into a million pieces, and then I'm like, well, I guess I can't exercise anymore.
And it's some of it you have to take your temperament into into consideration. Because I know a few people who it's all or nothing, and that's just who they are, and that's who they need to be. But for most of us, a small step matters. I heard an amazing teaching a couple of years ago where the gentleman, he started when he was 30 years old, and now he's closing in on 60. And every year, and he did make a New Year's resolution every year, but every revolution, yeah, every year it was one small thing, not 5 things, one small thing. And here's his point. He said, so for basically 30 years, every year I made one small thing. So you have 30 years of one small things. It's a little bit like, for me, hitting the age where I'm in my 50s, and it's like, how did I suddenly put on, the 70 pounds that I needed to lose? Because every year it was just, I just gained 3 pounds this year. 3 pounds over 12 months, that's not that big of a deal.
Sure.
Over 20 years, over 30, suddenly it's a big deal. but that matters. So when you think of what you need to change, pray through it. And we're going to talk about, decisions in the future, but pray through it. Oh, but what is one kind of change, but something that's doable?
Yeah.
Something.
Like, did you guys have the like jar of like pennies or whatever when you were a kid, where, if you had?
I don't think I did.
No. So like we had one in the house, and I know it's a pretty common thing.
It's only your house.
No, I know that this is a common thing.
Okay.
You just have, like, we had a big like glass jug basically. And if you had like extra, coins or pennies or whatever, you just put it in there, and then I believe the bit was, I believe now, my dad usually listens, so he'll probably jump in the chat and try to correct me, or in the comments. But I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be we were going to go to like Disney World or something when it got all the way filled up. We definitely never did that. By the time it was filled up, I probably didn't want to go to Disney World anymore. So I don't know what happened to that money. So hopefully my parents did something fun with it. I have no idea. I genuinely don't remember what happened. But it's kind of like that, where you walk home and the 4 pennies and the nickel you have in your pocket is almost meaningless. At least it seems that way. But over the course of time, as you add that up, and then you bring it to the bank.
My parents actually did that. So they own two restaurants, 2 Dairy Queens.
Yeah, and I was going to say, let's. It's more impressive to list the restaurant because everybody loves Dairy Queen.
2 Dairy Queens, and so we would keep a certain amount of change in the cash register every day, and the extra most of the time would go in
your pocket,
in the deposit in the bank. But there were certain kinds of things, like the pennies we typically didn't take in, like the nickels we didn't turn in, and so we had this big thing that we would fill up, and then once a year, we would take those in. And I remember dumping those into the little coin roller machine and them counting and being amazed at how much money that was.
Pastor Kiley has taught everyone on staff, probably just everybody that knows Pastor Mike, to never go to Dairy Queen with Pastor Mike, because he'll ruin it for you, because he can tell by the taste of the ice cream how long it's been since they cleaned the ice cream machine.
I'm not sure that's a gift or a curse. It's just,
I don't want to know. It still tastes good. I don't need to know that information.
My dad just trained me that way, and we were just aware of it.
Which, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They probably always have clean ones at that store.
Fast food restaurants are not always fun with me. Because of that. Because there's so much of that for years.
Yeah. What's the third
one is when we put the finish line over the process. And what I mean by this, so let's put it in terms, the most common resolution this time of year is to do what? Is to lose weight. So we say, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, and that's a mistake I made, and I keep using me as an example. I don't mean to make it about me, but the mistake I made is I kept setting a goal. So, and I'd hit my goal, and it's like, oh, I hit my goal. I'm fine. Instead of the process, I want to be healthy. And it's a little bit fuzzier of a goal because there's not a clear finish line, but the finish line is the process. So, instead of saying I want to lose 10 pounds, it's this year I want to track my calories and I want to exercise. And again, those decisions, the process is far better for your transformation than a finish line, because the finish line you can get temporary success. It's like, oh, I've made it, and then you fall back, and I made it and I fall back, or you can get kind of a false momentum, where you get momentum and get a lot of a momentum, and it's a little bit like, I've lost 2 pounds, I'm going to cheat today, kind of thing. Or I get discouraged because I haven't made much momentum, when the process is the measure of success. At the end of the day, did I eat healthy And did I exercise? I didn't do it quite as much. All right, I'm going to do better tomorrow. And you can apply this to any time in life. So we talked about 4 things this last weekend, and one of them was reading the Bible. So many people, it's like, I missed yesterday reading my Bible, or I missed this last week, and then they just feel guilty and they kind of fall out of it. Well, so you missed a day. Don't miss 2 days. Mm-hmm. It's like, praying with your family. If you're married, praying with your spouse. Awesome to be able to pray together. Do you miss a day? Okay, you miss a day. Don't miss 2 days. The process is the measure of success, better than the finish line. Now, finish lines aren't horrible things, but John Wooden, who you would be familiar with, one of the would he still be considered one of the?
He's considered the greatest
kind of basketball coach of all time. Yep. I didn't know where his record was at these days. Does someone beat his record?
He'll never be touched with his championship.
But he used to talk about the fact that the goal wasn't the championship. The goal was every single day we do what matters. Mm-hmm. Every single day we do what matters. We can put it, Disney stuff, but Frozen 2, for those of you that have little girls that watch things, the phrase is,
as well.
Do the next right thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the measure of success, is do the next right thing instead of, what's this kind of finish line? And I think, we get tripped up on that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we've talked about this before too, though, but in our faith, I'm almost positive you talked about this before, where we get so focused on the finish line, on heaven, and we don't realize that like where we're at now and the road to there, that's like God's using that time to prepare us, to grow us and everything. And sometimes we either want to skip over that or we look past it and we miss out on what we should be having now. And so it's kind of similar to that.
And it goes back to why we're doing the Grow podcast. Our goal is just to help everybody take a next step, because there's always a next step. Mm-hmm. In Colossians 1:20 and 29, it says basically our goal is to present everyone mature in Christ. And the word for mature there means complete, but it's such an interesting word. It means as it should be right now. It's not saying there's no room for ongoing growth. It's as it should be right now. So at the end of the day, did I do what I needed to do to be who I was supposed to be today? Oh, I didn't do it well. I'll do better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so always take that next step.
Do you have homework for us this week, or a next step, whatever we're calling it these days?
If you have some New Year's resolutions, if you don't, go back and listen to the January 1st online message. There's 4 great ones for all of us there. And then use these 3 things. Be intentional about it. Put small steps that are process-oriented, and measure your success by the process, not by the finish line as you move into this year.
Well, thank you, Pastor Mike. First podcast of 2023. We did it. We still know how to podcast in 2023.
We do. We haven't forgotten.
Thanks to all. And you guys still know how to listen/watch the podcast. So big success for all of us. But let's make sure that we actually take that next step this week. We say it all the time on the Grow podcast, but growth always starts with the next step. And that's the whole point of this is we want to be growing. We want to make sure you're growing, make sure we're growing, everything. So let's make sure we take that next step this week. If you haven't subscribed yet on whatever platform you listen or watch the Grow podcast on, please do that. Please subscribe. Leave us a comment or a like if you're on YouTube, a rating on or a review, whatever they call it on, excuse me, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Helps people find us a lot easier, especially since we kind of had the renewing of the Spotify one where when we went to the video podcast going on Apple Podcasts, it messed things up on Spotify. And so now that one's become a little harder for people to find on Spotify. So if you could follow it, like it, subscribe, whatever the thing is on your platform, we would really appreciate it if you're enjoying the Grow podcast and you want other people to be able to find it. I think I touched on everything I normally touch on. So we love you, New Hope family. We're so glad that you were here. We hope to see you at one of our campuses this next weekend, and we will see you next week.